Welcome, restless souls, to Carman's Crypt. I'm Carman Carrion, keeper of forgotten tales and curator of nightmares. You've wandered into my domain, where each week I unearth a fresh horror from the depths of human imagination. In these darkened halls, stories wait like hungry shadows. Each tale we've collected whispers of terrors both ancient and new. From crumbling mansions where something skitters behind the walls, to that strange text message you received at 3 a.m. from a number that shouldn't exist. So gather close. The candles are lit, the shadows grow long, and the witching hour is upon us. Are you prepared to face what lurks in the darkest recesses of Carman's Crypt? Lock your doors, still your nerves, and remember, here, every fear comes to life. This is Carman's Crypt. Your sanctuary of scares awaits. This episode contains themes involving child endangerment, home invasion, implied supernatural threats, and situations depicting a minor in psychological distress. The story includes elements of parental neglect, a child left alone in a frightening situation, and implied supernatural predation. Listeners who are sensitive to stories involving children in jeopardy or themes of abandonment may wish to proceed with caution. Footprints features psychological horror and disturbing imagery that some may find unsettling. Discretion is strongly advised. Picture, if you will, a child's bedroom door standing ajar in the darkness, that thin barrier between the safety of sleep and the unknown hungers that prowl in the night. In the spaces between lightning flashes, in the silence between thunderclaps, something waits with the patience of a predator and the hunger of the void. Our tale begins with a storm, as so many nightmares do. Tay pressed her face against the cold window, watching the storm clouds roll across the darkening sky like angry fists. The glass fogged with her breath as she counted the seconds between lightning and thunder, the way her teacher had shown them. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. The thunder came faster now, closer. The storm was moving in. At 9 years old, Tay had grown used to the empty house that greeted her each afternoon, the silence that stretched through the rooms like cobwebs, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the kitchen clock that always seemed too loud when she was alone. But Tay knew better than to wait up. Sometimes later meant midnight. Sometimes it meant tomorrow. Sometimes it meant Mom would stumble in with a new boyfriend who smelled like cigarettes and looked at Tay like she was something inconvenient. Honestly, Tay preferred the empty house. She padded to the kitchen in her bare feet, the linoleum cold against her toes. The refrigerator hummed louder as she opened it, surveying the sparse contents. Half a gallon of milk that smelled questionable, some leftover Chinese takeout from 3 days ago, and a bag of baby carrots that had seen better days. Tay grabbed the peanut butter from the counter and a sleeve of crackers from the pantry. Dinner of champions, she thought, echoing something her mother used to say back when she still made jokes. The first drops of rain hit the kitchen window like tiny fists. Tay looked up from her makeshift meal, watching the water streak down the glass in jagged lines. The backyard looked different in the stormlight, darker, more secretive. The old oak tree that usually felt friendly now loomed over the house like a giant with too many arms. She turned on the small television in the living room, more for sound than anything else. The weather report was all urgent voices and red-colored maps. Words like severe thunderstorm warning and seek shelter immediately. Tay turned the volume up, letting the meteorologist's voice fill the spaces between the walls. The sound cut through the weather report like a blade. 3 deliberate raps from the back of the house. The kitchen door that nobody had ever used. Tay's peanut butter cracker stuck in her throat. Dry and suddenly impossible to swallow. She muted the television with trembling fingers. The house fell silent except for the rain, which was coming harder now, drumming against the roof like impatient fingers. There it was again. Slow, measured, patient, like whoever was out there had all the time in the world. Tay crept toward the kitchen, her bare feet silent on the carpet, then whisper soft on the linoleum. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard she was sure whoever was outside could hear it. Nobody ever used the back door. The mailman came to the front. The pizza delivery guys always rang the doorbell. Even Mom's boyfriends used the front door, usually while leaning on it because they couldn't stand straight. She reached the kitchen just as the knocking came again. More insistent this time. The back door was old, painted white but chipped and weathered. It had a small window at the top, but from where Tay stood, she couldn't see through it. The porch light had been burned out for months. "Hello?" She called out, her voice barely above a whisper. The knocking stopped. Tay held her breath, straining to hear something, anything, over the sound of the rain. A car door? Footsteps? A voice calling back? Nothing. She took a step closer to the door, then another. The old floorboard by the sink creaked under her weight, and she froze. But still, nothing from outside. Maybe it had been a branch from the oak tree blown by the wind. Maybe it had been the storm playing tricks, making her hear things that weren't there. That's when the wind picked up with a howl that made the whole house shudder. The kitchen window rattled in its frame. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. In the darkness, Tay heard the back door's lock click. Not the sound of someone unlocking it from outside. The sound of the old mechanism finally giving up. The tumbler setting into place with a tired sigh. Then came the creak of hinges that hadn't been oiled in years. The door flew open, slamming against the kitchen wall with a sound like a gunshot. Rain lashed through the doorway, soaking the floor as the wind howled through the opening like a wounded animal. Lightning illuminated the kitchen in stark white flashes, turning everything into a scene from a black and white movie. "Mom?" Tay called out, her voice lost in the storm's fury. She rushed to the door, fighting against the wind to pull it closed. Rain soaked her hair and pajamas in seconds, cold droplets stinging her face. The door fought her, as if something were pushing back from the other side. But finally, she managed to force it shut. The lock clicked into place with a satisfying thud, though she noticed it took more effort than usual. Tay stood in the kitchen, dripping and shivering, waiting for her eyes to adjust to the darkness. The power was definitely out. No hum from the refrigerator, no glow from the microwave clock, just the sound of rain against the windows and her own ragged breathing. She needed a towel and a flashlight, and maybe to call Mom, though she probably wouldn't answer. That's when she looked down and saw them. There, pressed into the puddle of rainwater on the kitchen floor, were footprints. Small ones, smaller than her own, but definitely human. They were perfectly formed, showing the outline of toes and the arch of a foot. as if someone had been walking barefoot through the storm. Tay's breath caught in her throat. The prints were too small for an adult, too distinct for a child's shoe. They looked almost delicate, and they were still wet, darker than the surrounding water, as if they had been made just moments ago. She followed them with her eyes, her pulse thundering in her ears. The prints tracked water from the doorway across the kitchen, past the small table where she'd left her crackers, around the corner, into the hallway that led to the bedrooms. But that was impossible. The door had been locked. She had heard it lock, and there was no way someone could have come inside without her seeing them. The kitchen was small, nowhere to hide. Lightning flashed again, throwing wild shadows across the walls. In that brief moment of illumination, Tay saw something that made her blood turn to ice. The footprints didn't stop at the hallway. They continued down the narrow corridor, past her mother's empty bedroom with its unmade bed, past the bathroom with its leaky faucet, and stopped directly in front of her own bedroom door. Her bedroom door, which she always kept closed, was standing slightly ajar. Tay's knees nearly buckled. She grabbed the edge of the kitchen counter for support, her wet fingers slipping on the smooth surface. This couldn't be happening. This had to be a dream, a nightmare brought on by too much caffeine and too many late-night horror movies. But the puddle on the floor was real. The footprints were real, and from the gap in her bedroom door came the softest sound, like someone very small trying not to breathe too loudly. She needed to get out of the house, now. Tay turned toward the front door, but stopped when she saw more footprints leading from the kitchen. These ones were different, longer, wider, with a strange drag mark alongside each step. They went to the living room window, the one that looked out onto the front yard, as if someone had been checking to see if help was coming. Her phone. She needed her phone. It was in her bedroom, plugged in beside her bed. But her bedroom was where the footprints led, where her door stood open like a mouth waiting to swallow her whole. Lightning flickered again, and in that strobing light, Tay saw something that made her stomach drop. The living room window was fogged with condensation, but there was a clear handprint on the glass, small like the footprints, but pressed against the inside of the window. Someone was in the house with her, someone who had unlocked her door, walked through her kitchen, and was now hiding in her bedroom. Tay forced herself to move, creeping toward the hallway on legs that felt like water. Each step seemed to echo in the darkness, though she knew she was moving silently. The floorboards didn't creak. She had memorized which ones to avoid during all those nights when she'd snuck to the kitchen for a midnight snack. The hallway stretched before her like a tunnel. Her mother's bedroom door was open, the room beyond a cave of shadows. The bathroom door was closed, but she could hear the steady drip of the leaky faucet, each drop marking time like a countdown. And at the end of the hall, her bedroom door stood open just enough for someone small to slip through. Tay reached the bathroom and pressed her back against the door. From here, she could see into her bedroom, or at least the slice of it visible through the gap. Her desk, with its pile of homework she'd never finished. The edge of her bed, with its rumpled purple comforter. And there, in the shadows beside her dresser, something that didn't belong. A shape, small and still, but definitely there, about the size of a child, but wrong somehow, too thin, too angular. It stood perfectly motionless, as if it were part of the furniture. Tay's heart hammered so hard she was sure it would give her away. She needed to get to her phone, but it was on the far side of the room, next to the window. She'd have to walk past that thing, whatever it was, to reach it. But what choice did she have? The landline in the kitchen had been disconnected months ago when Mom couldn't pay the bill. Her phone was the only way to call for help. She took a deep breath and stepped into her bedroom. The floorboard creaked. The shape in the shadows turned toward her. What Tay saw in that moment would haunt her for the rest of her life, however long that might be. It was a child, but not quite. The proportions were wrong, the limbs too long and thin. Its skin was pale as moonlight, stretched tight over bones that seemed to bend in impossible directions. But it was the eyes that made Tay's scream stick in her throat. They were black. Not just dark, but truly black. Like looking into deep water at night. And they were hungry. The thing that looked like a child smiled, revealing sharp teeth. "I've been waiting," it said in a voice like a child's, but somehow wrong. Tay lunged for her phone, but the creature moved faster than anything had a right to move. It flowed across the room like liquid shadow, placing itself between Tay and the window. "You live here alone," it said, tilting its head at an angle that made Tay's neck ache in sympathy. "I can smell it on you. The loneliness, the abandonment. It's delicious." "My mom," Tay started, but the creature laughed. "Your mother won't be home tonight, or tomorrow. I've been watching. I know her patterns. She's found someone new to fill her emptiness, and she's forgotten all about you." The words hit Tay like a punch in the stomach, because they were true. All of them. "What do you want?" she whispered. The creature's smile widened. "What I've always wanted. What we all want. To not be alone anymore." It took a step closer, and Tay could see that its feet were bare, the same size as the prints in the kitchen. But there was something wrong with them, too. The toes were too long, the nails too sharp. "I live in the spaces between," it continued, its voice hypnotic, despite its strange quality. "In the cracks where the lonely children fall. I come when they call, even when they don't know they're calling." "I didn't call you," Tay said, backing toward the door. "Didn't you?" The creature tilted its head the other way. "Every night, lying in your bed, wishing for someone to care, someone to notice, someone to stay. I heard you. I always hear them." Tay's back hit the doorframe. The creature was right. She had been wishing for someone, anyone. She'd been so tired of being alone, of taking care of herself, of pretending everything was fine when kids at school asked about her parents. "But you're not," she began. "Not what you expected?" The creature laughed again. "I'm what you need. Someone who will never leave. Someone who will make sure you're never alone again." It took another step forward, and Tay caught a scent that made her stomach turn. Something like old rain and abandoned houses, and things that had been left to rot in dark places. "Of course," it continued. You'll have to come with me, back to the spaces between, back to where the lonely children go when no one else wants them. I don't want to go anywhere with you, Tay said, finding her voice again. The creature's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind those black eyes. Disappointment? Anger? You will, it said with certainty. They always do, eventually, when they realize that I'm the only one who truly understands, the only one who will never abandon them. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating both of them in stark relief. In that moment, Tay saw something else in the creature's face, a hunger so deep and ancient it made her soul ache. You can fight it if you want, it said as the thunder rolled over. It makes it more interesting, but you'll come with me in the end, because I'm offering you exactly what you've been wishing for. A place where you belong, a place where someone wants you. The storm outside seemed to pause, as if the world were holding its breath. Tay stood in her bedroom doorway, facing something that had crawled out of her deepest fears and most desperate wishes. And the terrible thing was, part of her wanted to say yes. Part of her was so tired of being alone, so tired of pretending she didn't need anyone, that the creature's offer sounded almost reasonable. What was the worst that could happen? Could it be worse than this? Than coming home to an empty house every day? Than eating crackers for dinner? Than lying awake at night wondering if her mother would ever truly come home? I know what you're thinking, the creature said softly. I can see it in your eyes. The loneliness has been eating you alive, hasn't it? Gnawing at you from the inside, making you feel like you're disappearing a little more each day. Tay's vision blurred with tears she refused to shed, because it was true, all of it. But I see you, the creature continued. I want you. I'll never leave you. Isn't that what you've been dreaming of? The words wrapped around her like an embrace, warm and seductive and terrifying. Tay felt herself taking a step forward, then another. The creature's smile was gentle now, almost motherly. That's it. Come to me. Let me take away all that pain, all that loneliness. You'll never have to feel abandoned again. Tay was halfway across the room when she heard it, a sound so faint she almost missed it. The soft thud of a car door closing, the crunch of footsteps on the gravel driveway. Mom's car. The creature heard it too. Its head snapped toward the window, and for the first time, it looked uncertain. She's not supposed to be here, it hissed, and its voice was no longer gentle. She never comes home this early. But Tay could hear her mother's voice now, talking to someone on the phone as she fumbled with her keys at the front door, probably making excuses to whoever she'd been with, spinning some story about having to check on her daughter. The creature's form began to waver, like heat shimmer on asphalt. This isn't over, it said, its voice fading. I'll be back. I'll always be back. The loneliness will call to me again. Tay? Her mother's voice echoed through the house. Tay, honey, are you okay? The power is out on the whole block. The creature was almost gone now, fading like smoke. But its eyes remained, fixed on Tay with an intensity that made her skin crawl. I'll be waiting, it whispered, in the spaces between, when she leaves again, and she will leave again. I'll be waiting. Then it was gone, leaving only the scent of old rain and the memory of those hungry black eyes. Tay stood in her bedroom, shaking, as she heard her mother's footsteps on the stairs. Tay? Where are you, sweetheart? I'm here, Mom, Tay called out, surprised by how normal her voice sounded. I'm okay. Her mother appeared in the doorway, backlit by the flashlight in her hand. She looked tired, her makeup smudged, her hair disheveled from the wind. I was worried about you with the storm, she said, though they both knew that wasn't the real reason she had come home. Everything okay up here? Tay nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Her mother stepped into the bedroom, and Tay saw her pause, her nose wrinkling slightly. What's that smell? I don't know, Tay said. Maybe the storm blew something in. They stood there for a moment, mother and daughter, in the darkness of the bedroom. Outside, the storm was beginning to pass, the thunder growing distant. Well, her mother said finally, I'm here now. Why don't you come downstairs? We can light some candles and make it cozy. Tay followed her mother out of the room, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. At the top of the stairs, she turned back toward her bedroom. The door was closed now, though she was sure she'd left it open. And there, just visible in the gap beneath the door, was the faint outline of small, bare feet, waiting. And so, dear listeners, we emerge from another dark corner of Carman's crypt. But remember, the horrors you've heard tonight are merely echoes of the terrors that await in the shadows of your own mind. If you enjoyed your stay in the crypt, why not invite a friend to join us next week? After all, fear is best when shared. Leave a review if you dare, or share your own tales of terror on my social media. Who knows, your nightmares might just become my next story. Until next time, keep checking under your bed. And remember, in Carman's crypt, every fear comes alive, and no one is truly safe. Sweet dreams, if you can still sleep at all.